I'm John Mortimer, and I'm going to talk about real transformation and how it's different to what we might already know about change in an organization. I find this is a really important subject because we like to talk about the words transformation and digital change, but what exactly are they? It's not simply about going to an organization and changing things. We all know that doesn't really work very well. I'm going to go through with you the three horizons model. This provides a really useful framing to look at the reasons why change is so difficult and what we can do to successfully sustain and grow real change and transformation. And I have further materials and case studies in the description below. We often see change as an unwelcome distraction in the job of leading and managing an organization, but of course it's very necessary. Our business world is defined by the way that we think about the work, reducing cost, getting the right people, being flexible, managing demand, improving the numbers. We have to keep on top of this. We have to keep on top of customers and their needs today and how that'll change tomorrow. One thing we do know is that this complexity pushing change is increasing. What we tend to do today to change is to reduce all of these drivers for change down to their individual parts and create separate change initiatives. This often creates silos of change, which are often uncoordinated. Sometimes this change is simply a reaction to one aspect of what we want to do. We know that this piecemeal approach is not suited to how an organization really works. What can take us forward is to do exactly the opposite of what we have been doing. Instead of looking at each part separately, we stand back and look at the whole of what is going on. Look at this complexity as a whole system in itself. In simplistic terms, and if you don't have enough time to see this whole video, this is actually the main message. We have our current organization and its way of working, its people, its thinking, its rules and procedures. If we change things in the organization, we often simply place new ways of working on top of what we already do. The current system reacts negatively to this type of change. Any innovation in this change simply gets swallowed up by the current ways of thinking and working, so that the real change gets watered down, often slowly sinking into oblivion over time. We are now going to see why this happens and how to avoid it. We start by asking ourselves, what is the dominant pattern or focus in an organization at a particular time? Let's start with where we are now and project that forward, the x-axis. Horizon 1 is business as usual. We work like this every day. It's static. But this way of working erodes over time because of changes and pressures that open up that force an organization to change. Horizon 3. Let's put in our organization our place in the future. It doesn't exist yet, and we often don't know what the detail is in here as it emerges over time. What we will do now is to add something in between. Horizon 2. This is the area of change and transformation. It's where the current pattern of Horizon 1 gives way, and we begin to move to the future organization. Horizon 2 enables this shift. It is entrepreneurial and innovative. Instead of pushing H3 onto H1, we consciously separate the two from each other and allow H3 to emerge from H2. Each horizon can be seen as three different qualities that, if we don't want to knee-jerk into the future, all three should be understood and designed for in the leadership of an organization. There comes a point where we begin the transformation from H1 to H3, and we can ask the questions, what would be true and what would we need to occur to uncover H3? The second question, and what would we need to do to Horizon 1 to begin to move to Horizon 3? These questions are a provocation to us to begin that move. We need to allow for experimentation and design to emerge as we find out what works in H3, as H3 is often unknown until we delve into H2. To successfully move with Horizon 2, learn, develop new ideas, We have to be able to disconnect from our current ways of working. If we don't, then whatever we try and come up with will simply be absorbed into the current Horizon 1 constraints and thinking. Horizon 2 is not about doing what we do better, but about how we can do different things. This is what transformation is about. It's about seeing our organization through a new lens rather than through our current paradigm and our current thinking. More importantly, Horizon 2 is about the process of how we take ourselves through this. By what path do we move to the future state? By what method? When we ask these questions, we generally don't know the answer because this mode of working isn't what we normally do. The Horizon 3 concept is a helpful way to highlight systemic change, and it helps us to recognize the difficulty of so many failures we have in change and reforming the organizations that we work in over the past decades. Let's use a metaphor to describe how the 3 Horizons concept can be so helpful. If we have a small car and we want it to fly, one way we could do this is to take that car and begin to modify it. One way we could do this is that we could take the car and begin to modify it, adding wings, making the engine lighter, modifying most of the car over time. Perhaps after lots of time and effort, we might just come up with something that might leave the ground, but it will never fly, and the modification time would be huge. Alternatively, we could simply start redesigning a small airplane from scratch. This would take far less time and effort, and it would result in a machine that would actually fly well. Modifying a car to make a plane is in fact like taking H1 and modifying that. Hoping to create Horizon 3 from Horizon 1, attempting to change what we have today is what so many of us have been doing for decades. This is the change that is like walking in treacle, pushing to make things happen and then realizing that not much has actually improved. Alternatively, starting with a new design for a plane is like focusing on Horizon 3 and then applying a method of change focused on new principles that is separate from Horizon 1. This is very different, and we don't bring with us all the restrictions and thinking from Horizon 1. We then have the opportunity to undertake real transformation, moving from one state to the next. Let's summarize where we are. When using the 3 Horizons concept, we find that it has 3 helpful properties. The first, it helps us to make sense of complexity and the emergence of possibilities of looking at the future. Second, we can see our own roles in this, design the patterns that are forming, who and how people can be part of this change. 3, it helps to visualize and understand how we can get there all together. It shows us the progress we are making. One useful and successful method to do Horizon 2 is when we set a small group of people to work together, disconnected from Horizon 1, the current organization, with permission to experiment, focused by the general direction that is Horizon 3. We might call this an innovation team, but it is much more than that, as it links all the parts of the organization together. It must be rooted in reality. We get frontline people in a room and they experiment with different ways that they can deal with new customer demands coming into the contact center. After some weeks, they may have worked with 50 customers. The team's primary activity is to learn what is possible and practical, and what learning has to be shared with those that need to lead into Horizon 3. The team learned new approaches, some of which were very different to what they had ever experienced before. The team learned not what we thought customers wanted, but what really mattered to customers and how to most effectively make that occur through the organization, through the horizontal aspect of how the whole service and operations work. They moved from simply learning to creating a prototype of a new way of working. Based on this, the team had created a whole new way of working, redesigned service in 3 months, 14% less cost, and administration was slashed in the new service. And of course, the service worked in a significantly different way than it worked before. In summary, the 3 Horizons model points to the fact that we need well-defined and proven approaches to making change happen. And that change is a competence that is not simply another branch of what managers do, but it is a specialized and expert-driven discipline. We also need to understand if we are interested in changing how we do things, or do we want to change and do things differently? This is change versus transformation. I hope this video helps to introduce systemic transformation. There is, of course, much more to this. I have further materials and case studies in the description below. Thank you.